Chapter 25. The admitting process was abbreviated because they already had my insurance information on file and I still had my hospital ID card in my wallet from last time. What do you know? The clerk had been right. It did come in handy. It must have been a very slow night because by the time my admission was done, a nurse was waiting at the swinging doors to bring me down to the patient area. Sally tagged along without a word, just waved her badge at the nurse when she started to object. Once we were installed behind a curtain, I sat on the exam table, Sally on a folding metal chair. This is going to be rough, I said. You didn't bring that issue of Women's Day. Shut up, she said. If I can't badger, you can't taunt. Fair enough, I said. We waited in silence for the doctor. Something niggled at me, something Sally had said. After a few minutes, an extremely clean-cut young man stepped around the curtain. He wore a white coat over a Grateful Dead t-shirt. Good evening. I'm Dr. Schenker. You are... He looked at his clipboard. Zach Brandis. Aha. And your friend here? This is Detective Sally Fuentes. She's here for clues about my assailant or taking me into custody. Maybe both. We're not sure yet. Aha. Sounds like a long story. Yeah, it is, said Sally, and you don't need to know it. Can we get on with this so I can get what I need from Mr. Brandis? Ooh, she called me Mr. That's never a good sign. All righty then, said Dr. Schenker. Why don't I take a quick look at what we've got? I scooted around so he could look at the back of my head. He opened one of those prepackaged sterile instrument setups and dumped the contents onto a metal tray with a blue paper towel on it. I guess they have everything they need for different procedures prepackaged in little kits, and he must have grabbed the one that said head laceration. The cut's not too bad. It's going to need some stitches. There's an awful lot of swelling. How hard did you hit your head? Pretty hard, I said. I was pulled over backwards as I was climbing my stoop and my head hit the iron rail. Did you lose consciousness? Briefly. Aha. I'm going to say a list of words and I want you to remember them, he said. He pulled out a pen light and shined it in one eye and then the other. Dog, clock, pizza, police car. Got it? Okay, I said. What day is it? Thursday. Thursday? Yeah. Oh, wait, it's Friday morning. Who's the president? I'd rather not think about that. Okay, you passed that one, but I still need to know. I told him. Great, he said. He pulled out a little thingy to check my ears. Any dizziness, nausea, vomiting? I was a little nauseous, no vomiting, but I was a little dizzy. A neighbor who's into Chinese herbs gave me some tea to settle my stomach. Good. That stuff can be pretty cool. Dr. Schenker's stock shot up with that comment. Most doctors I know dismiss alternative remedies out of hand. All right, what did I tell you to remember? Cat, watch, calzone, ambulance. Dr. Schenker looked at me impassively. Is he always this funny? He asked Sally. Yes, she said. Okay, maybe I should forego the Novocaine when I sew you up? That would have me in stitches, he groaned. Incidentally, and as I'm sure you're aware, there's another wound back there. Looks like it's just freshly healed. What's that about? I decided to make Sally uncomfortable, so while Dr. Schenker numbed the back of my head and sewed me up, I relayed the story of the last time Sally and I had met. When I finished, Dr. Schenker told me I might want to start taking it easy. Too many bangs on the head can take a toll. So in that light, he continued, tying off the last stitch, I think you're okay, but I want to send you upstairs for an x-ray, just to be on the safe side. All right, I said. Someone will be by in a bit to take you up. As soon as the radiologist reads your films and tells us everything is in one piece, we'll let you out of here. With that, he left. I gingerly felt the spiky little ends of floss sticking out of the back of my head. Don't pick at it, Sally said. Yes, Mother, I said. So do you want to talk about it? She asked. About what? About tonight? I got beat up. I didn't see who did it, and right now I think that's all I've got to say on advice of counsel. You're really not going to talk to me? Didn't you just threaten to arrest me a few minutes ago, or was that just foreplay? Okay, I'm sorry. Why don't we both take a deep breath and try to be civilized, all right? Fine, I said. Okay, first, why do you think Alex was killed? Like you don't know. Humor me. I took a long look into her frosty blue eyes. They were very hard, and that scared me a little. On the other hand, I didn't have anything to lose by telling her what I was thinking. And if there was a chance of melting the ice in her gaze, then let's just say the possibilities of what might be lurking in the depths underneath were intriguing. I took a deep breath and decided to take the plunge. As near as I can tell, I said, there are two reasons I might have gotten attacked tonight, and only one reason Alex got himself killed. Go on. Just then, an orderly came in to take me upstairs for my x-ray, telling Sally she'd have to stay put until I was back. She reluctantly agreed. But we're continuing this conversation, Zach, she said as I was led away. I'm looking forward to it, I said, and followed the orderly out of the ER. The x-ray didn't show a skull fracture, so a half hour later I was back on the exam table as a nurse went over the post-ER visit instruction sheet they make you sign before they release you. The nurse was explaining that my earlier nausea and dizziness meant a mild concussion. So we can only release you right now if you've got somebody to stay with you for the next 12 hours or so. I looked over at Sally. You've still got some explaining to do, so I'll stay until it's a decent hour and you can get someone else. All right, said the nurse. Now I know it's very late and he's probably exhausted from his ordeal, but because of the concussion and the nausea, you're going to have to make sure that he's easily aroused. Excuse me? Sally said. The nurse looked at her like she was dim. If he falls asleep, you have to check on him every once in a while and make sure that he's easily aroused. Sally nodded, tight-lipped. The red marks that shone on her cheeks when she got angry were arousing all by themselves, and I couldn't keep the smirk off my face. Is there anything else? She asked. No, that's it, said the nurse. Just sign this instruction sheet right here, she said to me, and you're free to go. Don't worry, Sally, I said, signing the sheet and taking my copy. I'm easily aroused. You'll see. You won't have any trouble at all. Shut up, she said. I laughed and followed her out of the ER and onto 9th Avenue, which was deserted in this pre-dawn hour. We took a cab to my building, where I knocked on Pooey's door and told him that I was okay. I introduced Sally, and he eyed her with suspicion, but whether that was her demeanor generally reserved for police or because he didn't think she looked like a real cop, I couldn't tell. Nice place, Sally said without inflection as we entered my apartment. Thanks, I said. Have a seat. I wanted a beer, but thought I shouldn't relax too much just yet. I'll make us some coffee, or would you prefer something else? Coffee's fine, she said. I washed out the coffee pot and watched her as she took in the space. I had gutted it and turned a good-sized one-bedroom into a very large studio. The loft bed was above the kitchen, which was open to the rest of the space, separated only by a freestanding counter. The only interior door was for the bathroom to the right of the front door. There were 2 easy chairs and a couch by the window. The smaller love seat had large cushions on the floor around it and faced the eastern wall where the television lived. My desk and work area were on the wall opposite, and to the right of that, a ladder led up to the loft. What does this place cost you, if you don't mind me asking? Are you looking for an apartment? I'm thinking of moving. I'm sick of living in the ass end of Queens, but I don't want to live in a rat hole in Manhattan, and I'm not sure what all I can afford on a cop's salary. It's a tough market. So what do you pay? Well, that's kind of a complicated question. What, are you embarrassed? No. It's a lot of money, huh? No. Let me guess. Your great aunt used to live here. You took over the lease because you're family, and you pay next to nothing because it's rent's controlled, while working slobs like me bust our asses providing you with goods and services, and we can't afford to live in Manhattan close to where we work? No. Then what? What's the problem? What do you pay? I'm the super. You're the super? Yeah. So I get a reduced rate. How much? A very reduced rate. She shook her head. You're a lawyer without an office. You live in an expensive apartment, in return for which you got to do what? Maybe 2 hours of work a week? That's practically a no-show job. The more I find out about you, the weirder you look. Okay, see, this is one of the things that's pissing me off, I said, raising my voice. You guys knowing shit about me. She pitched her voice to match. Maybe you shouldn't attract our interest. I took a step towards her. Maybe you should mind your own fucking business. She poked my chest. You started to interfere with our investigation, she growled. You kind of became our business. I grabbed her hand as she started to poke me again. The last time we got into a shouting match, I ended up in the hospital, and I've already been there again once tonight. So you should shut up, remember you're a guest in my home, and tell me how you take your coffee. Then we can sit down and peek at each other's cards. She pulled her hand away and glared, sullen and silent. The 2 red marks had appeared on her cheeks again, signs of her temper. She would have hated to know how attractive it made her. Black, she said, finally. I poured 2 cups of black coffee, brought them over to the window, and waited for her to sit. Here's how I think it all played out, I began. I know the Melfi brothers are running a retail drug operation out of their restaurants. You're a genius. Half the city knows that. Well, I didn't. Forgive me. I'm not hooked into the social scene. You'd never know, given what you were doing tonight and who you were hanging out with. Do you want to hear me out or not? By all means, continue. She made a show of picking up her mug, leaning back, and crossing her legs. Okay. Clearly, you guys are trying to shut down the Melfis. I think Alex Penworth was a confidential informant, giving you guys a line on what was going on there. I think the Melfis got wind of it and took him out. I don't know if you approached him or he approached you, but I'm guessing the latter. He was pissed off because they fired him, and he also had some hinky stuff in his past that would have made him look askance at the operation the brothers were running and the clientele they were catering to. Here's where it gets really fucked up. You guys panicked when Alex got whacked because it's really bad form when a CI gets killed. You either didn't perceive the danger he was in or you failed to protect him. His family could give a shit, and it's not really a problem till I showed up poking around. So somebody tells Jenkins and Cleary to queer the investigation into Alex's death. Maybe it was you, maybe somebody above you. You get the ME's office to write up the cause of death as suicide, and you stonewall me and Cynthia when we come to you with questions. Now, all that's bad enough, but the worst of it is this. The guy who beat me up tonight said something that didn't make any sense to me at the time. He said, no more questions. Now, the only people who've been trying to get me to stop asking questions are the cops. Then you conveniently show up at the hospital and let it slip that you didn't hear about the attack on me from the patrolman who responded to the call. You also knew where I was tonight and what I was doing. So here's the final thing that really sticks in my craw. I think you guys are so intent on covering up your incompetence that one of you, maybe somebody with official sanction, maybe just somebody who got a little overzealous, beat the shit out of me to scare me off. The spots on her cheeks were still there, but I could see it was requiring a lot of effort to maintain the steely-eyed gaze. Then it faded, and she looked down into the remains of her coffee. Shit, she said. Yup, I said, my sentiments exactly. So what were you doing at Hentai tonight? First, I want to tell you how the hell you knew I was in there. We've got the place under surveillance. You're on the watch list. You went in there. I got a call. I got to your place as soon as I could, and the Chinese guy told me you were at the hospital. So you don't know anything about why I got the shit kicked out of me? You are way out of line. You may think we're a bunch of assholes, but we're not about to assault somebody just because they're fucking up an investigation. You'd have been that big a problem, we would have just pulled you in. Yeah, I figured that. You're not in the clear with me on that, but there's another possible explanation, And that's that these guys, the Melfi brothers, are feeling a little edgy. I think one of the bartenders at Hentai might have recognized me from hanging around at one of the other restaurants. Doing what? Sticking my nose in where it didn't belong. I didn't want to explain my impersonation of an official with a non existent state agency. I knew something was going on at the restaurants, something that freaked Alex out. I also knew that something was going on because I saw you there and you warned me off, as did everyone else. I knew it must have something to do with drugs because that's your unit. And a friend told me the Melfis were mixed up with drugs on the island before they moved into the city. None of it made any sense, so I kept digging. It wasn't until I was in there tonight that I figured the whole thing out. You figured the whole thing out? How? We've been trying to crack it for months. I thought you said you knew all about it. Knowing it is one thing. Having enough evidence for an indictment is another. So in your time undercover, you weren't able to break it. Not even close. We knew the drugs were going in and out, but we couldn't figure out how. You went in there yourself and just tried to hang out with the party types? Yeah. I ended up with a bunch of hangovers and a lot of phone numbers from guys I hope I never see again. Ever go with anybody really famous? No. Well, I did. That's how I found out how they're moving the drugs. How? We had 2 bottles of sake and a few appetizers. The pop star we were with went to the bar. When he came back, he was ready to go, actually very anxious to go. And when I paid the bill, it was almost $1,400. Selling drugs over the counter to an occasional rock star isn't going to keep these guys in the lifestyle. They got to be moving more product than that to account for their spending habits. Maybe the restaurants are doing well. They are, but not that well. We sat quietly, ran everything we knew around in our heads. Try this on for size, I said. Maybe they have a larger retail operation going, maybe through delivery boys, maybe just putting junk out on the street. But they need a place to wash all that money. A restaurant is perfect for that. Fluid inventory that's impossible to keep track of. They run a tiny retail operation through the bartenders, catering to the glitterati. That ensures that the restaurants remain busy and high profile. It doesn't matter if they turn a profit. The profit is in the drugs. The explanation for the profit is in the restaurants. She nodded. That works. No way to tell, really, until the forensic accountants can get their hands on everything, and we can't do that until we go in there. You think you're ready to bust them now? If you'll make a statement, we put that together with what we already have, we can probably get a warrant. What about Alex's murder? What about it? You going to make an arrest on that? We don't have anything there. All we have is your supposition, and that's not based on anything. He never approached us. He didn't? No, he didn't. He wasn't a CI? No, he wasn't. Well, if you're telling the truth, then maybe I'm just a big jerk. Maybe you are. And that is the end of chapter 26.